Today's Monday edition of the Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast is brought to you by No Halftime. No Halftime is an iTunes app that allows you to compete in player versus player daily fantasy sports contest. Use the promo code BBALL for a free $25. That's BBALL for a free $25. That's No Halftime, where the fantasy sports season never takes a break. And with that, we are off. It is Monday edition of the Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I am the host tonight, Daniel Green. I am with my idol, my hero, my savior, my guru, my mentor, Mark Roberts. Mark, how are you, my friend?
I am doing very well. How are you?
I got to tell you, man, I'm feeling excellent. I think this is going to be the best show that me and you have done yet.
That's a pretty low bar, but hopefully we can exceed it.
It's a super low bar. I have a feeling that we can jump over it.
You have a good weekend, man?
Well, I mean, like, what's weird is I didn't even realize that tomorrow's a holiday.
Yeah. So first of all, there's some fantasy basketball implications. If you get nothing else from the show, remember this. There's a game tomorrow at, 1 p.m. Eastern?
1 p.m. Eastern. It's Sixers at Knicks.
Yeah, but, like, if you're in a weekly lock league and it locks on the first game of the day, and you usually set your lineup at, like, at lunchtime on Monday or something, this could be problematic. So, yeah. Or if your daily moves league locks early in the day. So go set your lineups early. Daniel and I probably should both tweet out a link or like a public service note or something. Early games tomorrow.
A little PSA that the lineup lock for the week will be 1 p.m. There's a 1 p.m. game tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean,
so on the Pacific time, that's 10 a.m.
That is.
Yeah.
So
Mark, do you have to work?
No. So I do have a day off, but I will say, I just want to quickly say, a lot of people think that tomorrow, Martin Luther King Day, is the best day of the year for basketball because there's basketball all day long. I mean, there's 10 games starting at 1 p.m. and then their last game of the night is Rockets Clippers at 10:30. So I mean, and there's actually the best game of the day is Golden State at Cleveland tomorrow.
Yeah, that's excellent.
So I mean, tomorrow is, maybe the best day of the regular season. I mean,
Golden State coming off a loss, I believe.
Yep, coming off a loss indeed. Yeah. To Denver, and actually, I think didn't Golden State win their last game, but Denver they lost 2 games ago to Denver.
I thought that they had to win this game to avoid a 2-game losing streak, but I could be wrong.
Actually, I think you're right, but I don't know why I thought they. Is that who they lost to? Denver? Now I'm all confused.
Yeah, they lost to Denver,
which I don't understand because
Draymond Green, man.
Well, that's true, but Denver should have beat them also at Golden State. I don't know if you saw that game.
I'm not remembering it right off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's where Denver with Kenneth Faried went nuts. They couldn't stop him on the boards, but Golden State ended up winning in overtime, and that was when I think Golden State had all their guys. But for some reason, Denver matches up really well against Golden State, which on paper you wouldn't think that. But yeah, anyway, so tomorrow, very important day for NBA, or very very nice day. I think it's besides Christmas.
They lost to the Pistons last game.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking Denver.
No, they did lose to Denver, and then then they beat the Lakers, and then they lost to the Pistons on Saturday night.
Yeah, which makes much more sense.
It makes zero sense to me.
Well, no, I mean in terms of when I think back, they did indeed lose to Detroit.
I see. So it lines up with your memory.
Correct.
I have to come clean also over the weekend because that was the Ben Wallace game, right?
Oh, yes, where I tweeted about his retirement ceremony, yeah.
So I made some I think my feelings about the Pistons, particularly the Ben Wallace area Pistons, have been well documented on this podcast. But
you hate them all. It's basically what the
I mean, I was a Pacer. I was a huge Reggie Miller fan growing up. I was I watched every Pacers game. I watched every Detroit Pacers series. So given the chance, I took a shot, kind of a tongue-in-cheek shot at Ben Wallace. But some folks on Twitter did not pick up in the tongue-in-cheek part of that, and they got very, very angry at me.
Wait, so Wait, so the day of or during the retirement ceremony, you took a shot at him?
Well, I just said, it was the night before, and I just said, if the Pistons are going to retire every every jersey for a Ben Wallace level player, they're going to run out of jersey numbers.
That's harsh, man. That's not nice.
Yeah. Well, I thought it would be clear that I was joking. It clearly wasn't, because there were some very, very upset Pistons fans. If you're listening to podcasts, I apologize. But,
yeah, like I'm ashamed to be on the podcast with you right now. I mean, seriously, I'm tempted to just leave, let you host a.
Sure,
I mean, I think our listeners should try to figure out a punishment. What's like? I mean, do we make you wear a Ben Wallace jersey?
Oh, gross.
And then
I would never.
Do we post a picture of you on Twitter with a Ben Wallace jersey?
No, I would never do that.
First of all,
he's definitely one of my least favorite players of all time.
I will say the ceremony. I wasn't a big Ben Wallace fan either, and also like I was a big Miami Heat fan, so they beat Miami in a there's one conference finals where Detroit beat Miami when Wade like tweaked some. It was like the weirdest injury. That was back in the days when Wade really would never get injured, and then he got he like pulled a weird muscle in like his calf or hamstring. I don't know what it was in like game 6 of the conference finals, and then sure enough they ended up losing after they had a 3-2 lead. So I always hated those Detroit teams too, but I gotta say the retirement ceremony was actually pretty cool. Seeing, I mean, like all the guys came back. Chauncey came back. Richard Hamilton came back for some odd, bizarre reason, which I tweeted about. Mehmet Okur came back. I don't know. Like it was really bizarre because I mean, when Ben Wallace was speaking, during his speech, and he was like saying thank you to all the guys who came, and then he got to like Mehmet Okur, and also Lindsey Hunter was there, and then another player who I forgot was like a backup guard. And you could tell he had nothing to say about those guys because they were not that important to the team. And it was super funny. But and like the one guy who was there, he didn't thank Larry Brown, who was there.
Well, Larry Brown is trying to think of he's a jerk. So I can't.
Well, yes, he is. But I mean, I think it was just Ben Wallace just forgot because I think they had a really good relationship.
I will say this. So Ben Wallace was obviously he was one of the best rebounders I ever saw. He was a menace as far as shot blocking goes. But as a Pacers fan, I was never like when we were playing against the Pistons, I never went into the game being like, Ben Wallace. Like it was more like, Chauncey Billups is there, and they're gonna have those guys on the wings that are like,
yeah,
making life really hard for Reggie. And like
there's really only two things that
Wallace scares me. Like he can do some things. It was never like I went in the game and just was like, Ben Wallace, I'm so terrified to play this guy.
Yeah. And we've already spent too much time talking about Ben Wallace on the show, I think. And like the only two things that I think are relevant to say is that one, we totally forgot about him when we talked about if we could pick someone to come in as like our bodyguard, like into a bar.
That was current NBA players. And plus, I would never want to hang out with that guy.
Wow, you really hate Ben Wallace. I don't know. Maybe why do he might be?
It's that whole Pistons team, man.
You should have seen him with his family. He seemed like such a loving, caring family man.
It's fine.
He did. His wife and his daughter started crying. He consoled her.
He wouldn't have full pushed Ron Artest in the back. We're getting way off topic, but if he wouldn't have full pushed Ron Artest in the back, then the Pistons fans would have never had a chance to throw beer all over Ron Artest, and that whole thing would have never happened. So, anyway,
your hatred for Ben Wallace.
Let's move on. Let's talk about current NBA players.
Wow, I'm shocked by this. All right, so what I want to talk about, and let me give a shout out. I think Mark, usually mentions that if you would rate and review the podcast, that would be a big help to us. And one guy who rated the podcast and also sent us an email.
Yes. Yeah, this guy's awesome.
I want to mention, so there was a very nice gentleman who resides in India. His name is Swapnil. And he sent us a really cool email, and he had some really cool suggestions. So I just wanted to say before I kind of get into one of his suggestions is that if you guys have, suggestions like that, feel free to when you're rating and you review the podcast, let us know. It was really cool, or send us an email. Mark and I love getting things like that. And we were both kind of blown away by the email, right, Mark?
It was very good, yeah. And it's cool just to know that we have listeners across the world. Yeah,
I forgot where he was in India. It was a place in India I've never even heard of. I'm trying to figure out where it was in India.
I'm trying to read through the email really quick.
Yeah, me too. So it was Bangalore, India.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he's at. So yeah, Very cool.
I'm not familiar with India and the geography there, but yeah, very cool to get an email from there.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that he thought that we should maybe do is mention who do we want to, who are like waiver wire pickups for the week. And I think that's a cool thing to discuss, especially Mark on a Monday show where we have a fascinating week now. I think there's only about, depending on your league, there could be only like 4 to 5 weeks of your regular season left. So what I want to do with you is go through, if there's a few guys that you want to stream this week and pick up, either stream for this week or, for a couple days, or just pick up for the entire week. I want to go over some players with you because there's a lot of guys in the waiver wire right now who have become pretty intriguing, I think. So the guys I want to discuss, we should also mention this week, so it's week 13, San Antonio only has 2 games. So for me, Kawhi is really the only guy for San Antonio that I'd want lock and load in my lineups. Is that you kind of concur with that?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think you can lock anyone else on. I wouldn't play anyone else in a weekly locks league.
Yeah. Although I will say, watching a couple Spurs games, LaMarcus Aldridge has been playing. He seems to be getting a lot more familiar with that system. So like going forward, not this week, but he's
just a consistency problem. Like besides Kawhi, you just never know who's going to do it.
Correct.
For example, against Cleveland 2 games ago, LaMarcus Aldridge had 6 points and 8 rebounds.
Yeah.
He played 30 minutes, but he didn't get much done, and they don't have any problem with that. They won the game. They don't care.
Yeah, I mean he's become more on my radar, especially for DFS, where I avoided him like the plague for the first 30 games of the season. And then that was even when like Duncan was out and David West was out. And Aldridge would still not put up really good numbers. But lately that's kind of changed, and he's become more of a focal point of their offense, and his usage rate has gone up. So that's been interesting to see. So he's obviously becoming a better fit. But all right, so let's talk guys, Mark, who I think could really help you win your league this week.
All right.
All right. First up for me, a guy who we've talked about a little bit on the show. He's been in and out of a doghouse. By the way, you have a dog who I know you don't like your dog, but would you ever buy a doghouse? Do people actually buy?
Oh yeah, we bought a doghouse for our dog, and we.
Wait, hold on. So you really have a doghouse, legitimately?
Yeah. We just bought it, and it has like a nice roof on it, and we put this little heating pad for when the dog wants to sit on the pad. It
and it's outside, right?
Yeah.
See, this is what sucks about living in New York. Like I couldn't do that. I don't have a house. I have a crappy apartment, so I could never get a doghouse. Man, so that's interesting though. I was wondering, do those really exist? Huh. They really do.
We made it so that if she wants to be outside during the cold winter, she can run out there and hang out in her doghouse.
Wow. Did you secretly do that because you hate your dog and you wanted to keep her out of the house?
No, did it to be nice. You want the animal to be outside and be cold, right?
No, absolutely not. All right, so a guy who's been in and out of a doghouse, not a real one, I don't think, is Dennis Schroeder for Atlanta. He's come on lately, and I just want to pull up a couple of his stats. So 15 points, 6 boards, 10 assists, 3 steals, and 2 3-pointers in 20 minutes on Saturday. And that's the thing about Schroeder. He doesn't need a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
Also,
we do have to maybe give the disclaimer that was against Brooklyn and their terrible point guard situation, but it's still very, very impressive.
Right. And there was a little bit of garbage time in that one, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But, Teague's been struggling a little bit. Schroeder's clearly back in the rotation, getting minutes. Atlanta has 4 games this week. I think he's an intriguing guy that if I have a roster spot available that I could stream this week, he's a guy that I wouldn't hesitate on picking up. And a guy really, and 2 guys that I'm kind of debating between is Schroeder or my boy Donald Sloan. Now, we all know Donald Sloan from Brooklyn. Brooklyn's also got 4 games this week. I'm not a big Donald Sloan fan. I don't think if in terms of talent, we've already discussed doesn't really have legitimate NBA talent, especially not starting talent. But his last couple games, he's got 12 and 9 assists. He's basically still splitting minutes with Shane Larkin. But if you're telling me guys can get you 7, 8, 9 assists, and he has a 4-game week, he could help you win win assists for that week. So he's an intriguing play as well. What are your 2 thoughts on those guys?
I love Schroeder. I love picking him up. I think he's the numbers he's putting up right now. Last I don't know, a couple of weeks, he's been playing about 22 minutes, averaging 12 points, 5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, over a steal, over a 3-pointer per game. Even though that's only 22 minutes, as you mentioned, he can fill up the stat sheet. That's close to a top 50 player. And then you get the upside. If you own him, I can think everybody should own him until the trade deadline, just in case he gets traded or Teague gets traded. I know that's not likely, but something crazy happens and Schroeder ends up in a situation where he's a full-time starter. I think he could be a fantastic player. So my recommendation to everybody, again, and I think we talked about this when we talked about Atlanta a few weeks ago, pick up Schroeder, wait until the trade deadline. He's going to give you enough production between now and then that you won't regret owning him. And then if he does get traded, I think you're going to want him on your team. Now, Sloan is obviously, as far as talent goes, he's not in the same ballpark as Schroeder is. I'm trying to look up something. Here we go. So here's his numbers last year as a starter with Indiana, because you remember when Indiana was decimated last season, like with injuries, and Sloan ended up as their starter. So he averaged 11 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. He didn't do much for you with steals. He got about a 3-pointer per game and shot 38%. So I feel like we already know what Sloan is as a starter. He's not useless. Like, it's worth a pickup just to see what he can give you. And as you mentioned, in a week where he has 4 games, I would expect like 20 to 22 assists out of him. Yeah. I wouldn't expect, 35 assists, but you could probably get 22 assists out of him. I think he's better to own than Shane Larkin, who hasn't done much with the playing time there. But if I have the option between Schroeder, Larkin, and Sloan, I would definitely go with Schroeder.
Yeah, the thing that's been interesting to watch between the Brooklyn, which is just a mess watching them play, but Larkin's actually put up better numbers on coming off the bench.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's the funny thing with Larkin. We haven't really seen, because we were all intrigued when he became the starter.
Yeah.
Because the per minute, per possession production that he put up on the bench, if you extrapolate that out to a full-time role where he's getting 30 to 32 minutes a game, he was basically like a top 50 player just because of the assists and steals and 3-pointers.
Yep.
The problem is he hasn't come close to putting up that sort of production as a starter. And so I think we could speculate why. I think maybe one of the reasons is just because he's not a starting level caliber player. And so when he has to fill that role, he can't maintain that production that he had coming off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I also want to let you and listeners know that during that, when you were giving some solid information, I changed from jeans into sweatpants. And I don't know why I felt the need to tell you and the viewers that, but I really did.
I gotta say, I'm just surprised that you have pants on at this point.
Yeah, no, I have not done a podcast yet, in naked. I've done one, I think I did one shirtless maybe, but yeah. And even that felt a little odd. I think I put on a shirt like halfway through, but yeah.
All right.
Well, moving on. So yeah, the Brooklyn, I mean, both those guys just are so bad in terms of real talent, but I'm with you. I go Sloan over Larkin. I think he could have a good week. A couple other guys who intrigue me, man. I'm not fan. I guess this makes sense. If you're streaming players this week, it's never going to be a guy that you're in love with. If it's on the waiver wire, that means how good could he really be? But if any of these guys have 4 games, these guys could also really help you out. Big sloppy gravy juice, Jared Sullinger. He's got the starting job back in Boston. I mean, he's played well. His last couple of games, 12.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, 2 assists, no blocks, which have been disappointing. But he's gotten 0.5 3-pointers, and he can actually block shots, surprisingly, even though he doesn't jump and he's like 400 pounds. And he can actually make some 3-pointers occasionally. So Sullinger becomes an intriguing play. He's only 65% owned, so that's in like standard Yahoo leagues, I think. So he's out there available in some waiver wires, and if he's starting, I think he's a player that should be owned. Another guy who's interesting is Amir Johnson from Boston. It's a guy who's overlooked by most. But look what he did on I'm trying to look at his last couple games. He had, so I mean, again, he's not consistent. I think that he had like 7 points and 3 boards on Saturday, but he had 14 points, 18 boards, 6 assists, and 2 steals on Wednesday against the Pacers. So, and you look at what he's averaging in his last 5. It's 12 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block on 69% shooting. That's pretty impressive, man. Like when I saw that, I was like, whoa. I mean, maybe I need to give Amir Johnson a solid look. So you have the Boston guys who are really interesting ads if you want to use this week, and also a guy who I know Mark's not really high on. It's Taj Gibson. Joakim Noah now is out for the year. God rest his soul. Thibodeau's work is complete.
Hey, can we go back over to those Celtic guys for just?
Well, yeah. Well, I just want to lay out all 3, and then
okay.
you can kind of have carte blanche and discuss. Out of those 3, which guys you really prefer. But I will say, so Taj Gibson becomes in play with Joakim Noah out. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think you kind of buried the big story there maybe a little bit with Joakim Noah is out for 4 to 6 months. Basically.
I'm not gonna lie. I felt rushed. Like when you jumped in, I felt nervous. I felt Mark Neal wants to talk, so I was like, you take a big one.
So Noah is out. That'll make for some intriguing changes there. I know he'd been out for a little while, but so first of all, let's start with those Celtic guys.
Yep.
I get why you would be interested in Sullinger. He can do some things when he gets playing time. Now, I think the misnomer here is starting for the Celtics equals playing time. I don't think that's necessarily true. Let's take Sullinger, for example. As a starter, he played 21 minutes, 24 minutes, and 20 minutes. So he hasn't topped 24 minutes in any of the games that he's been a starter. The previous, 3 games to him becoming a starter, he played 20 minutes, 26 minutes, and 26 minutes, or 25 minutes. So it basically doesn't matter in Boston whether you're a starter or not. You're going to play the minutes that you're destined to play that night, I guess, or whatever Brad Stevens has in his mind, and that's not very consistent night to night. So, Sullinger has solid nights where he gets you 14 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, like he did against Washington in the start. He also can do like what he did against Indiana in a starting role where he got you 4 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. So,
I agree with that, but that's a little skewed because you weren't looking at the larger sample size from the year. And I know just from playing him a lot in DFS, when he was starting, first of all, when you're starting, it just makes sense, right? The odds are you have a greater likelihood of getting more minutes.
I don't think that's necessarily true with this particular team in the front court. I mean,
just from and I don't have the numbers to back me up, so I ultimately could be wrong. But just from playing him a lot in DFS, like that seemed to be the case when I was watching him earlier in the year. Like, and sure, I mean, of course, there's games where, first of all, he's a moron on the court too. Some games he'd be getting stupid foul trouble, and then Brad Stevens is just crazy with his rotations anyway. But when he was starting, he had a nice run in there where he was getting, and still he would barely crack that 30-minute mark, if ever. But he was getting solid, 24 to 29 minutes. And I think if Big Fat Gravy's getting that many minutes, I think he's worth a roster spot.
Yeah, as a starter this season, he's averaged 25 minutes per game.
Right. So I mean, if I tell you Sullinger's going to get 25 minutes, is he worth a spot on your team?
So if you were in a deep league and you're just plugging him in and saying I'm going to ride with him unless he gets hurt or benched, I think that's okay. If you're streaming him in and maybe only going to get to play 2 or 3 games, I don't know if I see the upside or the consistency, either one of them, to play him, because there's just like, I'll go back. So he's came off the bench for 5 games. The previous games to that he started, he scored a total of, 15 points in 3 games. Like, there's not a lot to get excited about. I think if you're going to take a risk on a Boston guy, I like Amir Johnson a lot better. I also probably like Kelly Olynyk better. Both of them.
You like? Yeah. See, that's surprising to me.
Yeah. So I mean, look at Olynyk. He's playing 20 to 25 minutes a game as well. 2 games ago against Phoenix, he had 21 points, 9 rebounds, 3 steals, a block, and 4 3-pointers. Like, if you're going to take a risk on a guy who could play well or who could just not play a lot of minutes, I feel like Olynyk and Sullinger are in a similar position as far as playing time. And at least Olynyk has enough upside for me to take the risk on. Now, I don't necessarily want either of them. I'd probably take Amir Johnson over both of them. I'm just saying if you're going to take a risk on a Celtics big guy, you might as well go with the guy who has a lot of upside.
Yeah, and I think Mark's smoking weed today. Actually, no, that's fine. You can smoke weed. I think you're smoking crack. That'd be more like more scandalous, right? So I think that guy with upside. I think Olynyk does have upside, but I don't think he's going to get enough minutes to really utilize those unless an injury happened to Sullinger or Amir Johnson. I think if I rating those three, I would go Sullinger 1, Amir Johnson 2, Olynyk 3, and it looks like you're almost the opposite of me, right?
Yeah. So over the last 8 games, Olynyk's averaging 24 minutes a game. Sullinger's averaging 21 minutes a game.
Right, but I think it's going to flip now that Sullinger's back in the starting lineup. I guess we'll see who's we can see.
I don't think there's much to do with it. We definitely can make like a.
I'm taking notes of this
challenge here.
Yeah, this would be a nice little no halftime. Maybe.
Yeah, you can't challenge players on the same team. I don't think, but no. I mean, last game, look against Washington.
No,
I don't even know why we're necessarily arguing this because they both played 20 minutes, basically 21 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's silly. I think it's silly to own either of them.
But even for this week, you think it's silly for if you're streaming them?
Yeah, I don't really want those guys.
All right. Let's move on. What about my boy Taj Gibson with Noah out?
So he has started the last 15 games or so, right?
Yep.
I mean, he's been starting basically with Noah out. So let's just take a cut of those games. Let's take the last 7 games. He's averaged 8.7 points, 8.3 rebounds, and less than a block per game. Again, he's getting playing time. Like, that's not the problem. He's just not putting up a lot of numbers. So I guess if you needed rebounds, he's probably a good option. And then on top of that, to worry a little bit more, like I think with Noah returning, I think the mindset was probably like, let's just hold his place. Let's not rock the boat too much. But now that he's out for the season, maybe the Bolts mindset changes a little bit and so they start to say, well, let's see what we got in Bobby Portis. Like he's shown good flashes so far this season. What if we give him some more run, cut into Gibson's minutes a little bit, keep Gibson healthy for the playoffs, and see what Portis can give us. Yeah, I just don't think the upside is there for Gibson.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Chicago does. I mean, sadly, I still think that in Chicago and their front office and their coach, that their whole organization thinks that they're actually a legitimate contender this year, and I think that's absurd. So I wish that they would give Portis a lot more minutes, but because I think they want to win games, they're probably going to go. Gibson's going to get a boring 30 minutes and put up boring stats, but I think boring stats that could help you in a fantasy league.
I think he can really only help. Like, where do you think he can help? I think he can help in one category.
I mean, yeah, I know you only think he's good in rebounding, but I think he can. Again, he's not a big scorer, so he has to rely on offensive rebounds and putbacks and alley oops, and if he can even dunk anymore, because he's aged like 10 years. In the last year, he looks. If you watch, I actually watched a Chicago game from 2 years ago, just because I wanted to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. So if I watched the Bulls game from 2 years ago, I mean, his energy level was through the roof, and then you watch him play now, and he just looks so out of it and slow, and it's bizarre. I mean, Thibodeau wasn't playing him a ton of minutes, so I'm not sure, what's been going on. Maybe he's struggling with an injury as well, but he does not look the same. But I know you only think he's good in rebounding. I think he's still going to get you, 10 to 12 points. I expect him.
So what about his performance this season makes you think he can dip into double-digit points? Because he's averaging. He's
not that far behind double-digit points. I mean,
so do you think he's going to get more? Because even this month, so last 16 games, he's basically been starting all those games. He's played 31 minutes. He's averaging 8.9 points. I don't see how he gets to 8 or to 10 or 12.
So that's 9 points. I think he's going to get you 10 to 11 points the rest of the year. That's what I.
But that's not useful.
It's not great, and no. I think he's going to get you. No, not great. I think he's going to get you 9 to 10 rebounds. And there's nothing. Again, the last 5 games he has 0 blocks, which is concerning. But stop laughing. Stop laughing.
I feel like you're making my case for me.
He had a game where he had 6 blocks.
And he's had 0 blocks since then.
Right, but maybe he's just tired out from that one game. Like,
even if that's the case,
if you give me 6 blocks in like a 3-game span, I'll take that. So I think he's going to be useful. Like, you know, am I super ecstatic about owning Taj Gibson? No, but I think I think he could have some use.
I think you just have to know what you're getting. Like, I'm not saying don't pick him up. I'm saying pick him up if you think you need a lot of help in the rebounding category. Don't expect a whole lot else. If you get 3 blocks out of him, I think you'd be glad in a week's time. 3 to 4 blocks would be probably better than you would expect. You know, 2 steals, maybe like 5 assists, and maybe like 30 points. All right. Might get you 30 points and 30 rebounds. That's really not like, I mean, again,
no, it's not. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm not like
I'm trying to think where I would rank that versus Sullinger and Olynyk. I mean, hopefully we don't have to make this decision, but if you do, I think I'd go Olynyk and just roll the dice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so against you on this now with Olynyk going back to the bench. Like I like Olynyk's upside. I just don't see it happening. And you talked about how Sullinger's minutes go up and down. Olynyk's are even crazier in my opinion.
I absolutely I fully agree. Like, their minute situation is poor at best, both of them.
And that's why if Big Fat Gravy Juice is starting, I'm tempted to go him, man, over. But
what does starting mean in Boston? It means nothing.
It does. It means that he's gonna actually start the first and third quarters is what it means. He's gonna get some.
It's true. That's literally all it means.
As much as this sounds crazy, like there is something that if you get off to a hot start, you'll get a little more run. And so every game, he's gonna, out of all the Celtics big men, well, at least especially between him and Olynyk, he kind of has the first crack at it. If he stays hot, and we know how Big Gravy Juice likes hot stuff, he's gonna get more minutes. If that's how it works, so he's gonna have a lot of chances. Now, will he take advantage of them? I mean, God only knows that. But I just think he has upside. Like, he does. And the thing that I was reading off his stats earlier, he doesn't need. This is true for Olynyk too, though. They don't need a lot of minutes to put up some nice lines. But yeah, so far, I mean, out of the guys that we mentioned, like, none of them are super sexy. But I do think that some of them they can be useful this week. I mean, they've on a 4 games. If they have 4 games in a week,
And I just think, like, of the guys, all those guys we talked about, I think Amir Johnson, again, probably should be on your waiver wire. He should be able to be streamed in.
All right, let me ask you this then.
But he's on a little different plane. Like, I think he's going to get a few more minutes. I think he's the guy that's more steady and consistent. And it's not going to be a lot. It'll be 27 minutes. He's going to get you like 12, 13 points a game, 8 rebounds, get you a steal, get you over a block a game. Like, I would rather, if I have to go with one of these guys, it's Amir Johnson.
I'm with you, Larry. You know what? I'm going to get you. I'm going to get one player that you like. I don't care if this show takes 4 hours long. I will find a player that you like.
Yeah, Amir Johnson. I'm on board with him.
No. Besides Amir Johnson, he's too boring. No, that's fine. Okay, so if you like Amir Johnson, that's fine. But let me ask you about 2 other guys real quick.
Schroeder, I already professed my love for. I love picking up Schroeder.
I know, but I'm in a front court guy.
Okay.
So
let's get out of Boston because their front court is a landmine.
I'm done with Boston. Like, I'm done with Ben Wallace. Never be mentioned on the show again.
Thank goodness. Thank you.
So Ersan, another guy who I feel like we have talked about a lot, but like this week he could be useful. Ersan Ilyasova and Marvin Williams, 2 guys who, like, for years taunt us. They tease us. They're in play this week. They both have 4 games. They're both intriguing options. They're both. I mean, Marvin Williams.
What's Ersan's ownership?
27% ESPN leagues, and Marvin's 46%.
Of the 2, I feel much more comfortable picking Marvin Williams. He's actually kind of turned over a new leaf this year, which is a weird year to become consistent from a fantasy perspective. But nothing exciting again. But look, he scores a little bit. He gets you a good enough rebounds. Like let's just even take his last month of games, his last 15 games, get you 5 rebounds, 1.5 3-pointers, a block a game. Like, he just does enough things that it's kind of interesting. He's probably going to get you 10 to 11 points a game. So if you've got 4, if you have 4 games, you'd say he's going to get you 40 points, maybe 25 rebounds, 8 3-pointers, and 4 blocks. If you need those categories, I think he's worth owning. Ersan, I'm much less confident that he's going to come through and actually give me that, any sort of steady production.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think Marvin would be a nice pickup this week. Like the one thing, Big Al, I need to figure out when exactly he's coming back. I think he's still going to be out this week. But since Big Al's been out, it's opened things up. Marvin can play. He does that stretch 4 position, pretty well for Charlotte. Even though Charlotte's a team that Charlotte has been struggling so horrifically, it's been kind of sad to watch them just get destroyed. Yeah, wow.
And that's not to say Ersan can't have a big game, but I guess the nice thing about Marvin Williams is he's pretty steady. You can pick him up, you can put him in when you need to pick him, when you need to play him, and then you don't really have to feel bad about dropping him because he's, there's really not a ton of upside. If I was going to pick up Marvin Williams in a non-weekly league, like in a daily moves league, the interesting thing to do would be to pick him up before Friday's game because they play Friday at Orlando and then Saturday in New York. So you kind of get 2 games bunched together right there.
Yeah. And with Charlotte, let me just say, I hate Cody Zeller. I'm just so tired of him. Stop. He's my Ben Wallace. Stop giving Cody Zeller opportunities. Can he just be removed from the NBA permanently? I don't want and Tyler, take his brother Tyler too.
This sounds like the rant of somebody who's had a hard time playing daily fantasy with Cody Zeller. Is that what's going on here?
You know me pretty well, man. I'm not gonna lie. That is the case. He has cost me hundreds this year, Cody Zeller. He teases me with one game where he shows he flashes some really.
I'll tell you what, I would like Cody Zeller better than any of the Boston guys you've talked about.
Give me gravy juice all day over Cody Zeller.
No way.
I'll take Frank Stupid Kaminsky, even though he went to. I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say stupid because I love Frank Kaminsky. He went to Wisconsin, so that's my school. But Frank Kaminsky's been putting up actually. He's gonna be when we get to the DFS section of the show. He's a sleeper pick I like for tomorrow. Actually, he's been super consistent lately. But Cody Zeller just he's actually is an okay stream this week, but just he doesn't do enough. Just not enough for me. I've
picked him up in a couple places. I've been pretty happy with him.
Mark, I just want to read his line yesterday. Right, it's against the Bucks.
Okay.
Not a sleepy Greg Monroe. He's not gonna make you have nightmares going up against him. 23 minutes for Cody Zeller, 6 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 5 fouls.
Yeah, he was in foul trouble.
That's what he took from that line?
Yeah, obviously not great.
Yeah.
But listen, since he's started, basically the last month, he's been playing starter level minutes, averaging almost 11 points, 8 rebounds, 1.1 steal, 1.1 blocks. It's those defensive stats that I think are sort of valuable. He's not ever going to score enough. Frankly, that was a little surprising to me when he came in the league that he wasn't a better scorer. But I think the 8 points, 1 steal, 1 block, again, if you're planning for the week, if you're trying to pick somebody up, you can basically pencil him in for 30 rebounds, 4 steals, and 4 blocks. I don't have a problem with that.
So would you take Taj Gibson or Cody Zeller for the rest of the year?
For the rest of the year, yeah, I would take Zeller.
Because that was pretty similar stats that you read for Zeller.
Yeah, well, except for that Zeller is scoring more.
A tiny bit more.
And he's getting the steals and blocks that Gibson isn't getting. He's basically giving you the same rebounds but better stats everywhere else. So, I would take Zeller.
All right. Another guy that I want to talk about.
That feels like a good no halftime challenge, actually.
With
yeah, you want to do that?
Wait, hold on. So, you want with Zeller versus who were you saying?
Yeah, next game. I don't care who they're playing. I'll take Cody Zeller. You take Taj Gibson.
I'm gonna bury you, my friend. Taj is gonna have 6 blocks again. He's gonna turn into Ben Wallace for one night. No, that's for sure. I will do that. No halftime.
All right.
Taj, I get Taj Gibson, and you get Cody. Absolutely. You can have Tyler too. I don't give. You take all the Zellers.
I'll take both Zellers against your Taj Gibson.
Zeller family, and I will take my boy Taj.
I'll do that.
I want to send Taj some HGH.
He needs a boost of something, that's for sure.
Yeah, he really does. And Cody just nothing could help. Nothing can save that guy. That is a good challenge, though. Nice work by you. Okay, a couple of guys that I feel we need to talk about, because I've been getting lots of questions on Twitter for these two. A guy who was coming off a horrific injury, who I thought was going to start lighting things up the rest of the season. He finally got removed off. I'll see when you can guess who it is. Finally got removed off minutes restrictions. About I think it was like 2 weeks ago at this point, and he's tried to recruit DeAndre Jordan. Now I'm trying to give you hints.
Chandler Parsons.
Yes, Chandler frickin' Parsons. Like, he's still 76% owned in ESPN leagues, but how nervous are you about him? Because his production since he's come back and and been in the starting lineup and now allegedly not in any minute restrictions, although Carlisle decided to rest him last game. Like, are you nervous?
He played on Sunday night.
Yeah, so he played tonight, or against, I guess for you guys listening to the podcast, it'll be yesterday on Sunday.
He didn't play against Oklahoma City. You're right.
Yeah, he didn't play against OKC, but he played tonight and against San Antonio, where San Antonio beat Dallas by 40 points, by the way. And I can't wait. Golden State is playing San Antonio, I think, like next week, and I can't wait for those two teams to match up. But so Chandler Parsons tonight had played 28 minutes, 5 points, 2 of 7, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 steals. And that's not that surprising, given his recent production.
He's been really inconsistent because you don't have to go back very far to find a 25-point game with 8 rebounds and 3 3-pointers and 2 steals. He did that 4 games ago against Cleveland. So, I mean, he's not anybody I drafted anywhere just because he was ranked so high in a lot of pre-draft stuff, and we all knew that he had that weird microfracture injury surgery.
Right.
So, obviously the minutes have been lifted. He's played 34 minutes a game in those the last 3 games that he's actually played in. I don't think you can drop him, but he's certainly not giving you the production that you'd hope for. In the last month or so, he's played 31 minutes per game. He's giving you 11 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 3-pointer, not a whole lot else.
No, and what's scary is the same goes with the kind of Wes Matthews. We all thought he was gonna. He's had a couple games where he's flashed some of his Portland abilities. He hasn't been that great either. I'm starting to think that it's just not gonna happen this year for those Dallas guys.
And somehow they're 5th in the West.
Yeah, well, I mean the West is not especially after those top 4. The West sucks. I mean, you look at
I don't think Dallas should be the team filling in. I just think that speaks to how good of a coach Rick Carlisle is.
Oh yeah, fantastic coach.
I mean, that roster should not be in the 5th spot in the West.
Mark, you saw the game that they rested 4 of their guys. They won, I think. They won with Fat JJ, with Fat Felton, JJ Brea, who went nuts. I think they were starting Charlie Villanueva, JaVale McGee. God only knows who else they were playing. And Carlisle, I think he really is a top 5 coach in the league for sure. But it's just I'm just nervous because I do have Parsons. No, actually Parsons was dropped in one of my leagues, and I gobbled him up. And then I did a Dr. Evil laugh because I thought I made this genius move. And then I looked, and then you only have 4 moves in a week, right? And then I kind of wanted to pick someone else up when I really dug deep into the analytics of it. I was like, wow, this guy really has not shown much upside the last few weeks. So I'm tempering my expectations. I'm going to hold on to him, but I'm not super, not super psyched anymore, which sucks.
Yeah, I think he's worth owning for sure, but I don't think he's a top 50 player, which is probably what you were hoping for that he would eventually get to.
Yeah. So last player I want to talk about, Mark, and then I want to quickly do a little DFS stuff for our lovely listeners. And hopefully going forward, Mark, we can do a little DFS at the end of each show, give you some players that I like and that you like for the next day. But this is a guy who's 7 straight games he was in double digits, which I barely even knew. And then that was before tonight where Phoenix got absolutely destroyed by Minnesota. And that's Teletovic. Now, Phoenix we've talked about in the show a lot. It's just God only knows what to do with that rotation. You got, Markieff Morris is now coming, getting minutes. He's back in play. God only knows. But would you have any thoughts on Teletovic? Do you think he's actually a player that should be owned?
I mean, I think the first thing we all have to remember is Teletovic is sort of streaky, and he's not getting big minutes in Phoenix. So the threshold of just being in double-digit points is not in and of itself very interesting. But in that streak, he's actually hitting a lot of three-pointers. He hit multiple three-pointers in all but one game.
When he gets streaky, he's going to hit you threes.
And he's actually been rebounding okay. Like a couple of games, he had 8 rebounds. He had 5 rebounds one game. He's not going to get any of the defensive stats. So I think you pick him up only if you need some help off the – like points are so hard to find on the waiver wire. Finding somebody who can get you 15 points a game, which is, right around what he's given you the last few weeks, and 3 3-pointers per game can be valuable if you need those categories. So I think he's a straight category pickup. He's not going to do a whole lot else for you anywhere else. He might get you enough rebounds that he's not a negative there. But, points and 3-pointers is basically the only reason I'm interested in Teletovic. And if you need those categories, like particularly 3-pointers, there aren't going to be a lot better pickups than him out there for you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And with Phoenix, if there's one guy I'm picking up for Phoenix right now, it's Markieff. Like, I think he got 33 minutes tonight, even though they lost by like 30 points to Minnesota. I think Phoenix is going to give him a ton of minutes until the trade deadline goes, try to build up some leverage, and then trade him. And so, like, to me, out of that, that makes him, a juicy player that I definitely want to have at least in some of my teams. If he doesn't get traded, then I can dump him, or maybe Phoenix does, continues to give him minutes. And if he does get traded, he could get big minutes for another team. So, he's a player right now that's on my radar for sure.
Yeah, I can get down with that. I'm not as confident that he's going to get big minutes, but if he does, he certainly can produce. And he has started for 2 straight games. So one of those situations where I don't mind picking him up, just see what the week looks like. And if it doesn't pan out, if he's not playing close to 30 minutes a game, then I don't think you feel bad dropping him again. You haven't obviously invested much in him. You just drop him and move on.
Agree. Yeah. All right, man. Let's do a little DFS talk.
Okay.
So, as Mark and I mentioned at the beginning of the show, tomorrow's just an awesome day for NBA basketball, awesome day for DFS and season long. 10 games on the slate. A couple games when you look at kind of the spreads and just the matchups that I was, immediately drawn to. You have Portland at Washington. Washington is a 4.5-point favorite. Both of these teams are playing at a really fast pace. 212 is the over-under. It's by far the highest over-under of the day. I want lots of players from this matchup, are going to be enticing. I mean, John Wall, dear God. I mean, his last game, I thought he was going to get like 100 DraftKings points. He just had he's been playing great, even though Beal's back. Beal's still on a minute restriction, so Wall's usage rate has gone through the roof. So obviously he's a key play, but I like a lot of those Washington guys. In Portland, the usual suspects are going to be in play tomorrow. Another game.
I would guess also that Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are you would consider, like, if you're picking John Wall to go against those guys, that would be a positive that they're defending him.
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely. On both sides. And also the thing that's been interesting about Wall, I guess it's not surprising, right? Because the more energy you're going to exert on the offensive end, your defense has to hurt a little bit. So his defense hasn't been as great lately. So that makes Dame Lillard, put him in play too.
Right.
It makes him a really nice play.
And he's been playing very, very well lately.
Yep. He got that nice two week rest from whatever was going on with his foot. Was it plantar fasciitis? We don't know, but he's looked great. Portland needs him to score. And what's interesting about Portland, man, like we mentioned how bad the West is. Portland is actually fighting for the 8th seed. Like they're in the playoff hunt. Like they're battling Utah for that 8th spot. I don't think they're going to get it, but so Lillard he can just take as many shots as he wants, and kind of the same for McCollum. So tomorrow I also like Aminu. Like that's a perfect matchup for Aminu, an up and down game. Otto Porter is going to be intriguing too if he suits up. Another game that I wanted to that was appealing was Golden State at Cleveland. Obviously, this is the game of the day, just in terms of if there's one game I want to watch. But it also has a 206.5 over under, and also Cleveland's a 3-point favorite. This might be the first time all year that Golden State hasn't been favored in a game. Like I'd be shocked if it wasn't.
I think you're very well right. Yeah, I'm surprised that Cleveland is favored. Actually.
Yeah. Golden State has not. If you just watch them play the last 5 to 10 games, they haven't looked that great. They've still been winning most of them, but they easily could have lost at least 3 to 4 more games. In the past couple of weeks. So an interesting game, a close game. Very rare you get a game that's going to be very close with Golden State, where guys like Clay, Draymond, and Curry are going to play close to 40 minutes. And actually, Walton's actually tightened that rotation, which has been surprising as well. So all the main guys, you can't go wrong playing those guys tomorrow. And my favorite play of the day is LeBron James. He's only 9.8K on DraftKings. Too cheap. There's enough value in a 10-game slate. Take advantage of it. I love LeBron tomorrow. Like, he's going to be a core for me in all my lineups.
All right.
Hold on. I'm not done, Mark. All right, let me go quickly. Now I just want to run through some positions. I know I can feel Mark yelling at me. He wants the show to end. He thinks I'm going too long. Is that true?
No.
You can tell.
I just didn't have anything to end. I like that LeBron play. So
yeah, I do love LeBron tomorrow. Even though matchup against Draymond Green, whatever. I think the last time they played, LeBron had a horrible game, especially shooting the ball. So at point guard, we talked about him earlier in the show. Donald Sloan, 4.5K at Toronto. Lowry's a decent defender, but they're still, they're in the middle of the pack in terms of, guarding opposing point guards. I like Donald Sloan at that price tomorrow. Shooting guard, a guy who we haven't talked about on the show.
Point guard play?
Yeah, go ahead.
Victor Oladipo is out Monday. I think Elfrid Payton for 5,300 is a interesting play.
Who's Orlando play?
They are playing against Atlanta.
I could see that. I can get down with that.
5,300 for a starting point guard who, the backup is definitely out. So yeah. I think he can play big minutes.
Yeah, I get down. I can get on board with that pick. A shooting guard, Mark, a guy we haven't talked about on the show, J.R. Smith. Like the thing that's been the most surprising since Kyrie's been back, like the guy who's benefited the most has been J.R. Smith. He's only 5K. He's got 7 straight games where he's been over 20 DraftKings points. 3 of those have been over 30 DraftKings points. Like the thing that Kyrie's done, obviously, is opened up the floor more. So shooters are getting more open looks. I mean, God forbid Kevin Love could take advantage of it, but one guy who has is J.R. Smith. So I like that play at 5K tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Moving over, for small forward, I really like LeBron. For power forward, we mentioned Marvin Williams. He's 4.9K. 4 straight games at 20-plus points. I got, Kevin Love, he's only 7.1K now. And while I told you that over-unders, about 206.5, I think that's the second or third highest over-under of the slate tomorrow. He's hit value in 4 of his 5 games. Like, Kevin Love hasn't been shooting well. It hasn't been taking a lot of shots, but he's still been hitting value. So if he can just get a game where he's actually making shots, I think especially in GPPs, it might be worth a shot to take a chance on Kevin Love tomorrow.
Yeah, I would wait on the Kevin Love, taking a chance on Kevin Love. I don't think he's a good match. I don't think he matches up well against that Warriors team. I think that there's a chance that he sits more than he usually his playing time is lower than it usually is.
See, and I tend to agree with you, but that's what most people are going to be thinking the same thing, right? So I think ownership is going to be super low on Kevin Love tomorrow. It's a nice contrarian play. GPPs only. I wouldn't play him in cash games, but value's low. Kevin Love still has the upside. It's a home game for him. If you're playing lots of lineups, take a shot. Center, a couple guys. Mark will be upset with me because he does not like Jared Sullinger. 5.1K though, Gravy Juice Sullinger, and I'm telling you, my boy Kaminsky, only 4.4K. He's got 4 straight games of giving you over 20-plus DraftKings points. He's sneaky, man. He's basically
he's been playing well.
He's basically splitting minutes with our boy Cody Zeller, who we're doing a no halftime challenge with. So if you want to save at center tomorrow, you feel free to plug Kaminsky in there so you can spend up and get a guy like LeBron. So I don't mind him as well. And lastly at center, Andre Drummond, I think for Detroit. I think he's got, an ideal matchup against Chicago tomorrow. Chicago can't defend anyone. I mean, they're reeling, obviously, with the Noah injury. I mean, who's going to be guarding Drummond tomorrow? Is it going to be Gasol? He should eat him alive. They can put Gibson on it, but Gibson's too old and too slow. So I think Drummond at 8.9K, if you have the money, could have a monster game for against Chicago.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot, actually. I think, you start to think about who nobody can contain Drummond, but you start to think about that Chicago team and who can move around with him, and it's just there's nobody there.
Yeah, just like I could see possessions where he just gets like 5 or 6 rebounds and and any given possession, because like who's gonna box him out? Like he should just destroy Gasol. Like
Yep.
And he's too big for Gibson. Drummond's such a large beast. Those are my plays, man. Those are my plays for tomorrow. And also, I quickly want to mention, so normally I avoid Dallas on back-to-backs, but since Dallas got blown out by 40 points today by San Antonio, I think it's still going to be okay to play the Dallas guy. So you got a guy like Chandler Parsons at 5.3K. A risky play, but I like Chandler for GBPs only. So that's it. Yeah. So
right.
What do you think, man? So all right. So, beginning of the show, I said this may be our best show ever. I don't think it was our best show. I'm not going to lie.
Wow.
What do you mean? Do you think it was?
I mean, that seems so negative, but I'll have to do some research and see.
I think it was satisfactory, but it wasn't just wasn't top notch.
Yeah, I got one thing I definitely want to plug. On the website, dailyfantasybasketballpodcast.com, we have week 13 rankings up. A lot of the things you and I discussed will basically fall in line with that. We got rankings for all the top 400 players for the week based on their injuries and the number of games they're going to play. We got rankings by position. We've got rankings, guys to pick up, guys who are in our top 100 who are owned in less than 50% of ESPN leagues, and then guys who are at the bottom of the rankings who are owned in a bunch of leagues. I've had a good one for you there. Manuel Mudiay. He comes in our rankings 221st for next week. He's owned in 54% of leagues. You should probably move on from him. Just some things like that. So go check it out, dailyfantasybasketballpodcast.com. Our good buddy Tyler Watts is doing the updating for those rankings. He's done a nice job, so go check those out.
Yeah, definitely before you set your lineups, it's really a cool tool to use before you lock in those lineups for the week. So yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, man. You got anything else you want to plug?
No, that's it.
All right. Again, as we mentioned earlier, if you could rate and review this podcast, it really does help us out. Send us some emails like our boy Swapnil. If you have any suggestions, because we'd love to hear from you. So that's it, man. Me and Mark will see you on the next show. Will be Wednesday. Is that right?
Probably Wednesday show. Yeah,
probably Wednesday show. So until then, enjoy the games tomorrow on MLK Day. It'll be a fun day of hoops. So later, guys.
Peace out.